Hey guys, it's Miss Wicker. This is Chapter 6, Part 4. This is going to cover nested loops. And nested loops is just basically a loop inside of another loop. And the reason why you'd want to do that is to create some two-dimensional shape, such as this triangle shape right here, where you have different rows and different items in the rows. Also, if you had like a square shape, where you had rows and columns of numbers or symbols, then that would be another example where you want to use a nested loop. So we have a loop that actually loops through the rows. So for n I equal 1, so I less than or equal to n, okay, where n is the number of rows, so it's a loop n times. And so this would traverse us through the different rows. So I is 1 is here, I 2, 3, and 4, like that. And then in each row, we want to place different symbols. So in order to do that, we need a loop that will go from j equal I to j less than or equal to I, where I basically depends on the row you're in. Because for the first row, we only want 1. Second row, we want 2. So this value will change with each row, which is what we want. It will increment the number of times it'll loop, and so we'll be adding symbols to a variable r for each time it loops. So if it loops twice, you'll get 2 of these symbols together because you're updating your r variable with a new symbol, and then that becomes the current r, and then you use the previous r and add a new symbol, and that becomes the current R. And then after you've done looping, then there's end of line sequence of characters, so that would take you to the beginning of the next row or line. So this put loops together using a nested loop. That's what's going to happen here in the triangle class. So here's our triangle class. This class describes triangle objects. So here we have our instance variable width. Okay, that's a property for a triangle. A triangle is going to have a width. So here's our constructors. The same name as the class, and we have parameter variable here, a width. So the width is going to be passed in from the user, and that parameter variable gets assigned to instance variable so that it can be used in other places in our class. And here's our toString method that's going to return a string. And so we're going to declare variable r, and a lot of times when you're declaring strings, you have to initialize it to an empty string. Typically the compiler will complain if you don't initialize a string variable to some initial value. So you can just initialize it to an empty string. So it'll be a string of length 0. But a lot of times the compiler needs that. And then here's your for loop for int I equal 1, I less than or equal to width. Okay, that's a great descriptive variable there, width instead of n. I plus plus. So this will loop for however wide your triangle is going to be. And then, so to make your triangle row, you're going to use this inner loop. So when I is 1, then you're going to go to this inner loop, j is 1, okay? So then you'll append this symbol to r, and that'll be the new r, and then j will be 2 the next time. But since I is 1, 2 is not less than or equal to 1, so it stops looping. So you just get one symbol in the first row, because this is the next statement that gets executed because the for loop is done. So you're going to start at the beginning of the next line, and now I is 2. So what happens is control starts with the outer loop. It increments once, and then it goes to the inner loop, and this loop executes, finishes executing, and then goes to the next statement, and then goes back to this outer loop that increments to 2, and this inner loop executes and iterates for j equal 1 to j less than or equal to 2. So it loops twice. J is 1, so it appends this to r, that's the new r, and then j is 2. Okay, it's going to append another one of these symbols, so now we have 2 symbols, and that gets updated. That becomes a new R. And then when J is 3, 3 is not less than or equal to 2, so it stops looping. And then we're going to pin the new line character to R, which means we're going to start at the beginning of the next line. And now I is equal to 3. Okay, so y'all see how this works. J is equal to 1, J less than or equal to 3. So this will loop 3 times. Okay, you get 3 of these symbols that get appended to this R variable. And then you have a new line character. So for each row, you're going to get additional symbol that's going to be added. It's going to be one longer than the previous row. Okay, and then after you're done looping, then it'll return R, okay, which is our string with our different symbols in the rows. Then we have our triangle runner here in our main method. So we're going to create a small triangle first with a width of 3. Okay, or it's going to have 3 rows. So that loop is going to loop, since width is passed in here, 3, and then the width is 3. So then this loop, outer loop, will loop 3 times. Okay, so this will loop once. Comes the outer loop, it'll be 2, and then this will loop twice, and the outer loop will be 3, and then this will loop 3 times. And then the large triangle, 15, you're going to get lots and lots of rows, 15 rows, where each row is going to be one symbol longer than the previous row. And so this is what you're going to get. So we have our 15 rows. Our last row should have 15. Which it does, it has 15 symbols. Okay, here's some other examples of nested loops. For this one you have the outer loop that's going to loop 3 times, I is 1. And then an inner loop that's going to loop 4 times. So when I is 1, it's going to come to the inner loop and it'll loop 4 times. Okay. Actually, this is part of the for loop. This is a for loop with one statement in the body. So we're going to print 4 asterisks. That's our first row. And then we're going to do a print len. So basically, we're going to start on the next line for a new row. Then go up here. I is 2. Then we're going to loop the inner loop. I is 1 to 4. So we'll print 4 of these symbols, these asterisks, and then do a print len. So we start on the next line. And then I is 3. We're going to go here and loop 4 times. And we're going to print 4 more symbols, and then a print len. And now I is 4. 4 is not less than or equal to 3, so we're going to stop looping. So this is the output. We're going to have 3 rows of 4. And with this example, I is equal to 1, so I less than or equal to 4, so it's going to loop 4 times when I is 1. And then 2 and 3 and 4. So when I is 1, we're going to go to this inner loop. And then we're going to fully execute this inner loop. So J is 1. It's going to print 1 asterisk. And when J is 2, 2 asterisks. And J is 3, it'll print 3 asterisks. Okay. Print len means it'll start on the next line. And then when I is 2, then we're going to print asterisk 1, 2, 3 times again. And carriage return. So here we are right here. And then we're going to outer loop, so I is 3, and then we'll loop 3 more times. So that's the 3rd row, and then goes to the outer loop, and I is 4. It'll execute this inner loop 3 more times, and then carriage return. Okay, and then I is 5, and 5 is not less than or equal to 4, so then it'll stop looping, so you'll have 4 rows of 3. And here's some more examples for I equal 1 to I less than or equal to 4. Okay, and an inner loop for J equal to 1, J less than or equal to I, J plus plus. So the number of times you'll loop is based on your I value. So first time through the loop, I is 1, so it's just going to print 1 asterisk. Okay, then a carriage return. Then I is 2. So we're going to go from J is 1 to J less than or equal to 2. So it's going to loop twice. So it'll print 2 asterisks, and then it's 3. This will be I is 1 to J less than or equal to 3. So it'll print 3 asterisks, and then 4. And then we'll go from 1 to 4, and we'll print 4 asterisks. Okay, and that's the output. Okay, here's another loop. So this prints asterisks in even columns. So what you have is for I equal 1 to I less than or equal 3. So this will loop 3 times. The first time it loops, so when I is 1, you'll go in here. J is 1 to J less than or equal 5. So this will loop 5 times. Now when J is 1, this is a modulus 2, which returns the remainder. So it's going to take 1, divide by 2, and that's 0, remainder 1. So 1 is not equal to 0, so it will not print an asterisk. It'll go to the else portion, we'll print the dash. And then when J is 2, it'll go here, 2 mod 2. If you take 2 divided by 2, it gives you 0, remainder 0. Excuse me, 2, it gives you 1, remainder 0. So the remainder is 0. That's what we get with the modulus divisions. So 0 is equal to 0, so we're going to print an asterisk. And then we're going to go back, we skip the else portion, we go back up here, and it was 3. 3 mod 2 is 1, remainder 1, so that's not true. 1 is not equal to 0, so it's going to go to the else. And then when J is 4, 4 mod 2, 0, it'll print an asterisk. Then when it's 5, 5 mod 2, gives you 2, remainder 1. Okay, there's no asterisk, going to print a dash. Okay, so then you go to the outer loop, and then it's going to repeat this again. So you're going to get 3 rows of these symbols. Okay, and here for this loop, it's going to print a checkerboard pattern. So we have our outer loop is going to loop 3 times, our inner loop is going to loop 5 times, and each time it's going to take I plus 1. So it's going to add the value of I and J. The first time through the loop, I is 1, J is 1, so you get 2 mod 2, which is 1, remainder 0, so that's true, so it's going to print an asterisk. Next time you loop, J is 2, and I is still 1, so 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 mod 2 is 1, remainder 1, so 1, the remainder is 1, so 1 equal to 0, that's false, so it's going to print a space. And the next time through loop, J is 3, so you still have I is still 1, plus 3 is 4, 4 mod 2 is 2, remainder 0, so 0 is equal to 0, so that is true. So then you're going to put an asterisk. So y'all see you're going to get alternating symbols. You're going to have an asterisk and then a space, asterisk, space, like that. Okay, so that's going to end chapter 6, part 4. Take care.